Welcome to the GREENPOINT Williamsburg News Magazine. Neighborhoods Today. In this edition, join us for an interesting conversation with Congressman Stephen J. Solarz. Then to Chef Ralph LUPOLI at the Kitchen of Fanciful Feastings to see what he has to offer. Ted Wozniak of the GREENPOINT Volunteer Ambulance Corps then joins us to talk about this much-needed service in the community. Finally, this is the last chance to join our viewers contest and win a Polaroid Impulse Instant AF camera donated by Photosonic of 776 Manhattan Avenue. And I'm Dick Mahan. Tonight we have with us Congressman Stephen J. Solarz. Congressman Solarz has been involved in public policy and government all of his adult life. In 1974, Congressman Solarz was elected to the House of Representatives from Brooklyn's 13th Congressional District. In the House, he currently serves on 4 committees: Foreign Affairs, Merchant Marine and Fisheries, Intelligence, and the Joint Economic Committee. Congressman Solarz ranks 4th in seniority on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where he chairs the subcommittee on Asian and Pacific Affairs. Congressman Solarz, welcome to Neighborhoods Today.
It's good to be here, Dick.
What I'd like to do, if I may, is begin our program with some questions on GREENPOINT and Williamsburg. And let me start off with a question on the Brooklyn Navy Yard incinerator. It had been set to start in 1993, and it was postponed till 1996. Congressman, do we need an incinerator at all? Is there another alternative? Is recycling a possibility?
I don't think we need the incinerator, and I know that GREENPOINT and Williamsburg and some of the other surrounding neighborhoods don't want the incinerator. Clearly, New York does have a solid waste disposal problem, and it needs to be addressed. But there are better ways and far more environmentally safe ways of dealing with the problem than building an incinerator at the Navy Yard, which could spew forth potentially poisonous fumes into the air in the vicinity of neighborhoods in which tens of thousands of people are living. I think the solution to the problem lies not in the construction of an incinerator, but in a far more effective recycling program, which could enable the city to deal with this problem in a much more environmentally safe and sound fashion.
Has anyone else used recycling as an alternative to incineration?
I think it is being used in a number of other cities around the country, and some with considerable success. I think there's a potential to vastly expand it here in New York. In any case, if a situation should develop where an incinerator is needed, and I would hope it doesn't, but if it does, it shouldn't be located in the vicinity of residential communities, where you could potentially be adversely affecting the health and perhaps even the lives of innocent people.
Understand. All right, let's move on a little bit. The Brooklyn-Queens Expressway is going through a reconstruction project. And of course, I pass there every day, and I know that you pass there. You're a congressman who's in Brooklyn on a regular basis, so you know what I'm talking about. There's property damage there. We've got traffic tie-up. We have discontented landlords. What can we do to alleviate that problem?
Well, I agree with you, Dick. It's a terrible situation, particularly for the homeowners and tenants who live along the viaduct, which has been established to reroute traffic through the streets of the neighborhood while the construction is proceeding on the BQE itself. In fact, I was at a meeting a short while ago at the office which I share with Assemblyman Lenthal, to which we had invited representatives of the State Department of Transportation, as well as people from the local community board and neighborhood activists also, to discuss this situation. And I'm very pleased to tell you that we got a commitment from the Department of Transportation, number one, to make some alternative arrangement to deal with the problem of vibrations and noise created by the viaduct. And in fact, we were told that in the next couple of days, there's going to be a high-level meeting of the top brass at the Department of Transportation to consider a number of different engineering alternatives that are designed to deal with this problem so they can figure out which will be the best way of eliminating the noise and the vibration. Secondly, we were also given a commitment that they would make financial compensation available to any homeowner along the path of the viaduct who can demonstrate that they have suffered financial losses as a result of this rerouting of traffic through city streets.
Fine. I think they're very, very positive. That sounds very positive.
I was very pleased with the meeting. Of course, it still will have to be implemented, and the devil is often in the details. But in general terms, I think we made great progress, and I think Assemblyman Lenthal is to be congratulated for having taken the initiative in bringing people together. Marcy Boyle and Vincent Abadi from the community was there. I noticed that Linda Minucci was present also. So we had she was the Democratic State Committee woman. Councilman Ken Fisher showed up. So there was a strong representation from the community, and I think the meeting went very well.
Well, that's good. That's good news. All right, let's just move along. One of the big problems, not only in Greenpoint, but throughout the country, is crime. There are illegal guns out on the street. We have a number of drug users. Drug users are rampant in the country. As our Congressman, what do you perceive as a solution to this problem? This is a big problem.
Well, if I had the solution to that problem, I probably would be a candidate for president rather than only for re-election to Congress. But I think there are things we can do, and I certainly know there are steps that we should be taking, because this is really one of the most serious problems we face. Now that the Cold War is over, now that the Soviet Empire has collapsed, now that the Warsaw Pact is dissolved, the main threat to the security of the people of our community comes not from the remote possibility of a invasion or nuclear attack against Western Europe or the United States by the former Soviet Union. It comes from the muggers and the hoodlums and the murderers and the rapists who stalk the streets of our own neighborhood. So what can be done about it? Number one, I think we need more effective gun control legislation. I strongly support the so-called Brady Bill, which would require a 7-day waiting period before someone could come in off the street and buy a handgun, and it would also provide time for background checks to be conducted so that people who are not legally entitled to purchase a gun are prevented from doing so. I think we also need a ban on the manufacture of these so-called assault weapons, which serve no purpose other than to kill people. There have been too many massacres in the last few years in this country by deranged people who use these assault weapons, in which even school kids have been slaughtered. I also think we need to put more cops on the beat. And I'm proud of the fact that I voted for legislation which passed the House of Representatives, which would provide $200 million in federal funding for community-based police initiatives, similar to what we're doing here in New York, where Commissioner Brown is trying to get more cops out on the beat. So I think that would help to provide for a greater and more visible police presence on the streets of Greenpoint, Williamsburg, and other neighborhoods in New York. And finally, let me just say that I think we also need to do much more to provide good jobs and a decent education and health care to the people, particularly of the inner cities, so they can have some hope in their lives and they can see that there are alternatives to a life of crime as a way of moving ahead in our society.
I see. Congressman, we know that you were in the forefront of the involvement in the Persian Gulf War. Do you agree with the way that conflict was ended?
I think, Dick, that we were right to do what we did. If we had acquiesced in Saddam Hussein's annexation and occupation of Kuwait, the stage would only have been set for additional wars of conquest by this Mesopotamian megalomaniac in the future. And we now know that if we hadn't gone to war when we did, he would have obtained nuclear weapons by now. And if this madman had actually acquired nuclear weapons, there's a very good chance he would have used them, and infinitely more people would have been killed as a result. My regret, however, is that he is still in power. And I think that this was a big mistake on our part. We should have finished the job, particularly after the Kurds and the Shias in Iraq rose up against Saddam, largely because we urged them to do so. We did nothing. We left them in the lurch, as a result of which tens of thousands of them were slaughtered by Saddam's troops. I think what we should have done is to have come to the assistance of these people by using the air power of the United States and the other coalition countries to ground Iraq's air force, to prevent Saddam's helicopter gunships from massacring the insurrectionists, and also to deprive him of the use of his armor and artillery. If we had done that, there's no doubt in my mind that the insurrection would have succeeded, Saddam would have been overthrown, and the prospects for a more democratic and peaceful Iraq would have been greatly enhanced.
Do you think that if we had continued the conflict down at the Persian Gulf, if we had continued it, say, for another week, okay, that the situation would have been different?
If we had continued it for another week, and if we had been prepared to march into Baghdad, it of course would have been very different. But I think it does have to be said there would have been a problem with that, largely due to the fact that most of the other members of the coalition had signed on for the purpose of liberating Kuwait, not for the purpose of occupying Baghdad.
Absolutely.
And the president was understandably concerned about the extent to which a move on our part into Baghdad, which is what we would have had to have done if we had wanted to remove Saddam ourselves, would have fractured the coalition. I think that his decision to stop when he did, in that sense, was understandable. But the mistake the president made, in my judgment, was in not coming to the assistance of the Kurds and the Shias when they rose up shortly afterwards against Saddam, and where if we had been willing to come to their assistance, I think they would have prevailed, Saddam would have been out, and the prospects for peace in the Persian Gulf would have been far better.
Just a little sideline. The technology that we used, all right, the Patriot missiles and so on, we were not sure exactly how effective they were until we got into the war. And then when we did, we were quite surprised and amazed that indeed they were so effective. Then we sort of had another thought that maybe they should have been doing better than they actually did. And the final solution or the final outcome was that they were excellent. They were excellent. What opinion among the congressmen and yourself of the weaponry that we used during that conflict as far as its expertise and quality?
Well, by and large, I think Desert Storm has to be considered a spectacular military success. It isn't every day that you go up against a 500,000-man army and defeat them with fewer than 150 men killed in action. So this was, without question, a great military triumph. However, it is very important, even in a war which you win, to learn the lessons of that conflict and to benefit from your mistakes. And the truth of the matter is that, like in any war, not every system functioned exactly the way it was supposed to. There were problems. We are now in the process of identifying those problems, and hopefully, as a result, we'll be in a position to avoid making those mistakes or to make the necessary improvements in those systems in the future, so that if we have to go to war again, and I certainly hope we don't, but recognizing human nature, I think the chances are at some point in a place you and I couldn't possibly predict, under circumstances we probably can't even envision, we may one day have to go to war again. And when we do, I want to make sure we win with a minimum number of casualties at the minimum cost.
Yes,
and one way to do that is to study very carefully the lessons of this conflict in order to make sure we do even better the next time around.
Very good. I appreciate those insights. Let me ask you a personal question. Okay. Of your 18 years as a congressman in the Brooklyn area, what accomplishment gives you the most satisfaction? I mean, you're from Brooklyn, you've been in Brooklyn, and you've accomplished quite a number of things, but what's your own personal top satisfying event?
Well, it's a very good question, and in a way, it's a very difficult question because as I think back on almost a quarter of a century of public service, my mind is flooded with memories of people I've been able to help, some of whom were in urgent need of assistance, sometimes in the most extraordinary circumstances. And we could take another half hour and I could tell you some of the most incredible stories. But if I had to single any one or two things, if you'll permit me out, I would say one which perhaps gave me the most satisfaction was persuading the City University of New York to establish an open enrollment program for senior citizens, which entitles senior citizens to enroll in classes and courses given on the various campuses of the City University on a space available basis.
No age limit on this?
No age limit, and it doesn't cost them any money. As a result of which, there are now thousands of senior citizens who are retired, but who still value intellectual activity, who recognize the life of the mind doesn't come to an end on the day you retire, who are taking courses in all sorts of subjects. And I'll never forget a letter I got from a woman named Bertha Farmer, who wrote to me. I had never met her, but she wrote to me and she said, I'm 84 years old and I enrolled in a course in Spanish and in history at Baruch College in this open enrollment program, which I read in the paper you helped establish, and I thought you might like to know that I got an A in history and a B+ in Spanish. I thought that was really tremendous. Yeah. The other one was the role I played in convincing President Assad of Syria to permit a dozen single Jewish women in his country for whom there were no single Jewish men left or available to marry, to leave Syria and to come to the United States where they would have a chance to meet and marry some eligible Jewish bachelors in our country. And as a result of that, these women came to the United States. Now all of them are married. Between them, they have 54 children. And
isn't that terrific?
You'll be interested to know that
wonderful.
When they came here, after proxy marriage ceremonies in Damascus with men whom I had arranged to send them marriage proposals by mail, which President Assad of Syria had insisted on. It got a lot of publicity when they arrived, and I began to get letters from men all over America who wanted to marry these women. One day I got a letter from a woman in Coney Island who wrote, Dear Congressman Solarz, I'm not Jewish, but I am single, and I'd like to know if you can get a husband for me as well. So I seem to have gotten a reputation as a matchmaker.
Right. It's been a great pleasure for Neighborhoods Today to have you with us. And we thank you so much for your insights and for coming to Neighborhoods Today.
Thank you very much.
Very nice to have you.
Thank
you, sir.
Good. Take care.
What does this piece of shark and this ruler have in common? Stay tuned for Neighborhoods Today, and I will tell you right after this message.
I love New York. We love New York.
We've been stuck inside our homes,
while our everyday heroes have been working overtime
for New York to reopen
and stay open.
We all need to do our part
and show that we care.
Look, man.
I wear a mask to protect you.
You wear a mask to protect me.
Let's all wear a mask
to stop the spread of coronavirus
and save lives.
When we show up in the mask,
we're showing up for each other.
Show your love for New York.
Because New York loves you.
Now Chef Ralph Lupoli joins us from the kitchens of Fanciful Feastings with some interesting cooking tips.
Welcome to Fanciful Feasting. I'm so delighted you could join us tonight. We have some very important information that I want to pass along to you tonight. We're not going to be doing any cooking, but this is really important information, and it's about cooking fish. Fish is nutritious and wonderful and healthy for you, and thanks to the gentleman at the Grand Street Fish Market, I have this wonderful selection of fish to demonstrate for you. Did you know that they've been in business for 60 years? Neither of them look that old, but I guess they age well. That's when you eat a lot of fish. What happens? James Beard, noted cookbook author and teacher, has said in his book on fish cooking, for centuries, the French, the Italians, the Russians, the Chinese, excuse me while I look at my notes, are great fish cooks. But it's regrettable that this art has not been passed down through the centuries. So what we need to do is teach you how to cook fish, and the Canadian Fish Council has devised a method of cooking fish after much testing and experimenting. And what the method is that no matter how you cook fish, you cook it 10 minutes per inch. You measure the fish at its highest point, and this is 2 inches. So you cook this fish for 20 minutes. Here's a piece of shark. You measure that at its highest. This is pretty even. That is, again, a little bit more than 2 inches. So I would suggest you cook that maybe at 12 minutes. No matter how you're cooking fish, you cook, if you're broiling it, if you're sauteing it, if you're putting it in the oven, it's always 10 minutes per pound. When you're poaching fish and you have your broth boiling up, let it simmer, let it come up to the simmer, put your fish into the broth, make sure it's covered, allow it to come up to the simmer again, then start counting your time. If you're baking it, bake it in a 450 preheated oven, which is very hot, but again, 10 minutes per inch. If the fish is frozen, don't bother defrosting it. Just add another 10 minutes, which would make it 20 minutes per inch. This works all the time. If you have a rolled fillet, measure it the same way by standing it up, and 10 minutes per inch. When you're buying fish, always buy fish as you need it, if you can. Make sure the eyes are bright, everything is fresh looking, and you'll find that you will have no problem.
For 28 years, the GREENPOINT Volunteer Ambulance Corps has been servicing the people of GREENPOINT. In fact, it was the first volunteer ambulance corps in Brooklyn. Its quick response time and trained emergency medical technicians have helped save many lives. Its hard work and dedication to the GREENPOINT community is well known. What is not well known is that the ambulance corps now needs your help. We have with us tonight Mr. Ted Wozniak, trained emergency medical technician and the safety officer of the GREENPOINT Volunteer Ambulance Corps. Ted, welcome to Neighborhoods Today.
Happy to be here.
Let me ask you a quick question. How long have you been a member of the GREENPOINT Volunteer Ambulance Corps?
Approximately 7 years now.
About 7 years. And your duties during those 7 years?
As an assistant, as a driver for the ambulance, and helping with day-to-day operations.
Let me ask a question. Supposing you have an emergency call, what would the response time be for the furthest point in GREENPOINT?
Our response time is approximately 2 to 3 minutes in the neighborhood.
That's excellent time.
We try to make it our best.
Okay. Do me a favor and tell me, what is the makeup of the ambulance corps regarding personnel and equipment?
Approximately now we have 30 active members. 2 members as far as away from Westbury, Long Island, who come and donate their time. We have 2 ambulances, but due to rising costs, we're only able to operate 1 ambulance now at 16 hours a day.
The people who are volunteers for the ambulance corps, are there any age limits on that?
Well, you can join the ambulance corps at the age of 14, and we have members as far up as 80 years old that are doing active membership time now.
What would someone do if he was a volunteer for the ambulance corps? What would his job be?
We need people in every capacity, answering phones, helping with paperwork, fund drives, day-to-day operation of the ambulance, even an assistance on the ambulance. They need no special medical training.
Okay. Let's see. How do you folks finance the operation of the ambulance corps? I mean, where do your monies come from?
90% of it comes from the generosity of the residents of GREENPOINT, 10% from federal and state grants when we do get them. And I'd like to thank our 2 local firehouses for donating large amounts of money to us because they knew we were in dire needs of funds.
Okay. Well, you folks are doing great work. If I want to volunteer my time, all right, what number would I call? Supposing I have some time and I want to go ahead and donate it to the GREENPOINT volunteers. How do I do that?
You can contact us at 383-7879 or come to our location at 119 Driggs Avenue at the corner of North Henry Street.
All right, suppose I can't be a volunteer, but I want to contribute, I want to go ahead and give some monies for the great work that you fellows are doing. How would I do that?
Make a check or money order payable to the GREENPOINT Volunteer Ambulance Corps and send it to 119 Driggs Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11222. And remember, all money donated to us is tax deductible.
Okay, that's a very, very good point. We appreciate you being here at Neighborhoods today. Ted, thank you very much.
Happy to be here.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Finally, make sure you send a card to our viewers contest. You could win a Polaroid Impulse instant camera, which was donated by Photosonic, a camera store located at 776 Manhattan Avenue. All you have to do is send in a postcard with your name, address, and phone number to Neighborhoods Today at the address shown on the screen. The drawing will be held on June 1st. Cards must be postmarked no later than May 29th. We will then call the lucky winner, and your camera will be sent by registered mail. Please be sure to send in a card, and good luck. That's it for this edition. For Neighborhoods Today, I'm Dick Mahan. Thank you for watching.